Hello, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television Reality. Welcome to Focus Nigeria. It's the midweek edition of the program. My name is Benga Aruleba. Today we are still on the economic plane, and specifically, we will be asking questions on the ease of doing business, or shall we call it the difficulty of doing business in Nigeria. The ease of doing business global index by the World Bank puts Nigeria at number 169 out of 189 countries in the world. Between 2014 and now, Nigeria has notched up like 3 places, an improvement on its standing really. The ease of doing business rates countries along 10 different parameters which have to do with regulations that enhance or constrain business activities in each country. These areas include the ease of or the difficulty of starting a business, dealing with government permits, availability and cost of power, the ease or difficulty of registering a business enterprise, availability of credit facilities, the tax regime, and enforcement of contracts and resolution of disputes. As the World Bank puts it, the ease of doing business parameters are actually the nuts and the bolts that hold the economy of any nation together. It is instructive here to observe that Nigeria's ranking, 169 out of 189, is not a particularly cheerful one, where one notes that more than 10 African countries rank very high, much higher than Nigeria on the World Bank Index. For instance, Mauritius, which is the best ranked African country, is number 28 on the chart. South Africa is occupying number 43. Rwanda is at the 46th position. Ghana, a West African neighbor and rival on all issues, is number 70 on the chart. There are also other smaller African countries like Seychelles, Namibia, Zambia, and Cape Verde that rank better than Nigeria on how to do business. So, what is it that Mauritius, South Africa, Rwanda, Ghana, Morocco, and Botswana are doing that Nigeria is not doing or not doing well? My guests will be joining me very shortly. One of them is an entrepreneur who will be sharing his practical experiences with us in his position as the president of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Some additional information on some developments in the politics in the last 24 hours. Let's start with the news of the sack of the PDP acting national chairman, Prince Uche Secondus, not by the party, but by an FCT High Court. The court was delivering judgment in a suit by the former special advisor to former President Goodluck Jonathan on political matters, Ahmed Goodluck, in which it contended that Uche Secondus was occupying the office of acting chairman illegally, as the arrangement that put him in that office is not known to the party's constitution. Justice Hussein Baba agreed with the arguments of Goodluck and ordered Secondus to vacate the office of national chairman within 14 days, while anyone worthy of the office, according to the party's constitution, should assume the office immediately. The PDP position is that the PDP party constitution is that an officer who's removed or who resigns before the end of his tenure at any level must be replaced by the next most senior officer from that same zone as that officer, if that person is in the executive, and if it's not, you have to look for within that same zone. So, if Muazu from Bauchi State resigned as PDP national chairman and Uche Secondus from Rivers State can't replace him, that's Goodluck's argument, which was upheld by the court. As all eyes are on the INEC over the inconclusive Bayelsa election, the recriminations between the combatants have continued, while supporters of the All Progressives Congress APC in Sagbama local government, who said they were attacked by alleged PDP-sponsored thugs during the election, are calling for the cancellation of the election in the local government, that is Sagbama. The PDP, on the other hand, says its overtures to the APC is yielding fruits, as many of them from the southern Niger local government, where elections are inconclusive, have now joined the PDP ahead of when that election will hold. Now let's start with the APC members who spoke from their sick beds in Sagbama.
Was taken away, or 12 result was taken away, there was no security. So we are all beaten. The Dr. Bagra was beaten, Victor Nekenem was beaten, Abaro was mercilessly beaten that the same day.
My brother, it was unbelievable. Over 15 persons descended on me. They beat me up to plumb.
Okay, and the other side, of course, is the reconciliatory overtures by Governor Seriake Dixon to the APC, which is yielding results, according to him. About 2,000 members of the APC in Southern Region local government have defected to the PDP. They were received at a ceremony in Government House.
The change they brought to us in my ward was not the kind of change we were expecting. We want peace.
Myself and my people, we are here in Ward 2 Southern Region and Gobri. So we are ready to work for PDP and deliver.
We are pleading with our governor, our leader, that he should please reintegrate us back to PDP. I give you this umbrella of the senior of our party.
I'm governor of all. I'm governor of APC. I'm governor of PDP. I'm governor of PDM. Anybody who is a Bayelsa, in fact, anybody who is an Ijaw man or woman, I'm a governor of that person.
Another Governor General of the Ijaw Nation. And guess who is crying out like a voice from the wilderness, crying out for help, calling for help, really? PDP spokesman Olisa Metu, who says his life is under threat as the Buhari government, a pursuit of enemies, is now after him. Metu spoke to journalists in Abuja at a hurriedly arranged press conference yesterday. Oh my. Okay, we can't get that up. All right. Our discussion is up next. You already know what we'll be looking at this morning. The ease, or is it the difficulty of doing business in Nigeria? My guest will be joining me shortly.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Show a people as one thing, as only one thing, over and over again, and that is what they become. Start the story with the failure of the African state and not with the colonial creation of the African state, and you have an entirely different story. When we realize that there is never a single story about any place, we regain a kind of paradise.
All right, if you're just joining us, a very warm welcome to you. We're looking at the economy again this morning because from all indications, it's likely to stand out as our number one problem next year. Probably security will be will yield the top spot to our economy as the most challenges that will face us. There's not just the government, but even ordinary Nigerians. The government is already singing it that we should be prepared for tough times ahead. My guests are seated. Tokwe Fashua is joining us for these discussions. Tokwe is an economist. He's an author of so many books. He's also a social commentator. Good to see you, brother.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, all right. Mr. Tony Ejinkeonye is joining us for these discussions. He's the president of Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So he's an entrepreneur. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Like I said, our economy will definitely be the major challenge for us next year. Not just the government. If government at all levels, state governments that are not able to pay now, I doubt if the federal government will be in a position to arrange any bailout for anybody next year. So, real problem there. Even us as individuals, when there's a problem in government, it affects us as well. So, how true are those projections for next year?
Well, you know, I think I woke up this morning to see that the government is telling us to brace up for tough times next year.
A better regime.
And I think that these four dark horsemen coming, which I've always wondered about. Okay, so there's going to be deregulation of the petroleum sector, you know, increase in fuel prices. The Naira is already devalued on the streets now, 262, 265. If you try to get the official one, it's tougher to get the official, even when you qualify. There's the VAT likely going to be increased as well. Government is looking for more money. What have you? There's another problem, looking around. The electricity tariff
will likely go up.
Has already been approved to go up 40%. So with all of this,
with an assurance of better service, because it will be provoked, it will be stoking the fire if you don't have better services.
So my own problem is just that well, when I saw the news this morning, I didn't quite like it because I felt it was bad communication. One thing that we should not be removed from the people of this country this time is hope. And you see, no matter what the economic indices and cash flow is looking like, the government should just keep trying to give us hope, rather than say, okay, we voted for change, change has come. However, all we're hearing is about tough situations coming up. And apart from that, if you still look into governance right now and the issue of ethics in government and so on, what you see is that anybody that's closest to the money just generally helps themselves. We hear that the Senate is buying cars worth 4.7 billion for themselves. So where's the let-up coming from?
From their vote.
From their
budget.
Of course, from their budget. Exactly. Yeah. Now, the point is, where's the budget for the people compared to the budget for the Senate?
The question should be, is it not because they have excess? That's why they spend it anyhow. If the money is available,
the allegation according to Premium Times, yes, sir. The allegation according to Premium Times is that these monies had already been monetized, but then someone will come and say, oh, we need project vehicles. Then you go and buy the vehicles again and pocket your monetize. That means you are getting paid twice. So anyway, but the bottom line is, yes, they said we should. I think that the government should communicate differently. I think that they should give us some hope. I think it may not be as bad if they can key into what is very important for us right now, income redistribution to a certain extent in a crafty way. We're not saying you should take money from one and then. Of course, certainly they need to spend for
just dropping it on all Nigerians like hot potato is not the ideal way.
It's not the ideal way. It is wrong at this moment.
Is the government not learning from its experience during the campaigns when he made promises without even actually knowing the gravity of the situation? Promised that every unemployed Nigerian will get 5,000 naira. Now they are in the fix because the money is just not there. Even those who are employed, you can still not pay them. Not to talk about those who are on unemployment. I mean, who are not employed. Rather.
It's gonna take a lot of thinking outside the box. I personally don't support the idea of giving people anything for free.
What I'm actually alluding to is, in what other ways could government have communicated these realities to us without necessarily telling Nigerians again?
Yes, sir. The government itself should have hope. The government itself should be hopeful. You see, economics is not a pure science where you mix this with this and you get this result. It depends on a number of things, and you know, as you go along yourself, it depends on a lot of imagination. It depends on how the cash flow in the country is allocated. However, you see, when you come with a message of hope, More people are going to establish SMEs because there's a message of hope. More people are going to go out there today and start a new company. When you say that 2016 is hopeless, then you're killing something. And with all these kind of figures we hear bandied around, I mean, the government will say to Nigerians, for example, you know, you can see we're recovering a lot of money from these guys that have taken so much money. Don't worry, we are on your side. We're going to do a lot for you next year. Even if it manifests or whether it doesn't manifest, it's a different ball game. But when you communicate that, look, since I've been 7 years old or 6 years old, in the days of Murtala Mohammed, all we have been hearing is stuff, tighten your belt. You know, Shagari came with austerity measure, Obasanjo came with his own, you know, Babangida came with SAP. The government that just left, under which we are hearing about all these huge hastes, he also told us to tighten the belt. So when is anybody going to speak on the side of Nigerians? I don't know.
All right, let's hear from an entrepreneur here. Mr. Ejinkeonye, next year, the government says next year will be tough. You are an active player in the field. From what you are seeing around you, are you preaching message of hope or bed tightening with the belief that after the bed tightening, there will be hope?
Well, it was interesting hearing my colleague here, Mr. Tokbe, expounding on tightening of belt and the four dark horses. We've been hearing of belt tightening all over from whatever regime and all that. And Nigerians have shown how capable they are in absorbing shocks. But where I would differ slightly with Tokwe is this. I believe it is right for government to say things as it is and not just to dress it. Say what the expectations are. Instead of in past governments, because I remember a particular government that said we are not going to take IMF loan, we are not going to take IMF loan. Inadvertently, from the backyard, they took IMF loan, deceiving the whole populace of
well, did they take it, or it was the conditionalities they took?
Whatever, but the history has told us that the money, they took the money and even the conditionalities, even worse conditions than Nigerians expected. Yes, but I believe this government has also given hope. There's no scarcity of hope in Nigeria. What Nigerians, and most especially foreigners, know about Nigeria now is that now with the anti-corruption scheme, that is the fight against corruption, the perception, because perceptions matters more than even reality. The perception everybody has is that this government is going to work. So that even if we are going to suffer, it's a momentary problem that at the end, everybody is going, the economy, everybody is going to benefit. So what I think is...
Is that not what they are preparing our minds for?
Sorry?
Is that not what the government is preparing our minds for?
Yes, that is it. So that hope is there, Mr. Tokwe. The hope is there, and the expectation is there. The perception everybody has, because even up till now, with all these negative projections everybody is talking about, Nigeria still enjoys the highest FDI in the whole of Africa. Is the reality.
Over 700 million, they said also.
So is the perception actually matters so much. So what I believe is that, yes, 2016, government is going to come up with a lot of regulations. There's going to be increase in a lot of items, like petrol. We are going to pay more for petrol and all that. But then, inflows to government, capital expenditure, investments in infrastructure definitely is going to increase. And when it increases, definitely there is still more money going into circulation in the country. So I think that's what Nigerians should look forward to. More expenditure by government in those areas. And if there is more money in the economy, definitely more employment will be created. And that's have a ripple effect for the whole economy.
We are taking issues out of the index for ease of doing business or difficulty of doing business in Nigeria. You hit on one issue in your opening remarks. That's the issue of subsidy. Diesel was deregulated long ago, several years now. And I noticed that initially when that was deregulated, which means government removed its hands from it, no subsidy. initially went up. But today, it has not only stabilized, but it's also coming down to reality. Isn't it? Because I know that the cost at which I bought diesel last year is not the cost I'm paying now. Because all of us have to buy diesel regularly because of the power shortages and all of that. I know the cost is reducing. That time was when I used to pay over 100,000 for 2 drums of diesel. Today I pay less than that for the same 2 drums of diesel. That, some people say that supports the argument that it is time for government to withdraw the subsidy on other petroleum products, particularly kerosene and petrol. That what government had been subsidizing all along is the inefficiency that people have created in that regime. If you don't have a storage facility, why do you have to scramble for license to import petrol? You import, you don't have a place to store it, then you don't then go to Bega, who has a storage facility, to go and rent his storage facility to keep and pass the cost to government. If you don't have the facility to import petrol and immediately discharge it from the depot and distribute, why keep it in another place and acquire demurrage and pass the cost to government? These are all the things, these are some of the items of subsidy. Can government keep sustaining subsidy that has got over, is it a third or a quarter of the nation's annual budget? Can any reasonable government that won't, simply because we want to be popular with Nigeria, keep sustaining subsidy?
Mr. Gbenga, I was looking at the list of, because I think the NNPC or whoever it was published the list of the people that they recently paid subsidies, and you see a lot of Nigerian companies there walking away with 3 billion in 10 places, 30 billion going to some places, 20 billion here. And I'm wondering, is it that we eat, sleep, and drink fuel in this country? You know, it still doesn't make sense, you know, that we'll spend that much. And of course, the GMD of the NNPC said that we spent 1 trillion last year. 1 trillion. So already, that means that in spite of the effort after the big haste of 2011, where we spent 2.3 trillion, according to Mrs. Ejinkeonye, well, when eventually when she was about to leave, she was, you know, we had a fuel problem then, and she was dragging with those people this oil
that they were not going to pay,
and they were, exactly, and she revealed that in 20
differential in the exchange rate.
Because we see we got a lot of figures, 1.3, 1.7, 2.1, whatever, but she said eventually that it was 2.3 trillion. And then we're saying that even in spite of that, there's still this tendency that we can't extricate ourselves. So maybe it's a great time for government to generally hands off. My only problem is 2 things. The timing. If you're going to unleash 4 dragons on the people at the same time, you've got to be careful, no matter how popular the government is. Number 2, you have to think about the vulnerable, the most vulnerable people of this country. Except we're saying they are not there. But when you go to the hinterlands, when you go to the ghettos, someone read a post yesterday, someone made a comment that, I didn't know there were slums in Abuja. I mean, you haven't seen it.
Even in Asokoro.
You know what I mean? So you see, except that, no, and you know, there are a number of economic issues to think about. Nigerians are particularly sensitive to this fuel thing. I don't understand why. We should ask ourselves, why is it if government increases fuel price today by 10 naira only, from 87 to 97, the price of transportation jumps by 50% or 100%, and it stays up? Who is making the communication? Who is communicating with the people? Who is reorientating the people of this country? Who is speaking to these issues? Who is letting people know that if we increase fuel price from 87 to 97, that's a small component of that transportation, and therefore if you get to the bus stop and the guy increases his price because he can increase his price by 100%, you guys should come together and resist. Just the same way people resisted in January 2012. We can also resist and talk to ourselves so that those who have the opportunity don't continue to take advantage of those who don't. However, However, that's a different phenomenon. I discussed this with an economist recently. He said, yeah, he said that's galloping inflation. No. Every time you find an opportunity to pigeonhole this problem, you have enough pigeonholes to describe it and say, that is what they wrote in that text, that is galloping. No. Some of these issues are peculiarly Nigerian. Mind you, okay, the government itself is increasing, or rather from NERC, they're increasing tariff by 40%. They're not talking of 3%, not 5%, not 8%. When you go abroad, you see that they increase salaries 3.5%. Go to the UK, you see 5% increase in salary year on year, and so on. You know those places. That's what we should be trying to achieve. If the government itself increases by 40%, 50%, 100%, then you have a problem. But however, there are some things that we need to discuss with ourselves. There are some times we need to stand up to ourselves. Okay, let me tell you something, sir. That's the time recently that the government, quote and unquote, devalued or depreciated the currency from 160-something officially to 199. And I went into a pharmacy to buy a drug. And that drug, all of a sudden, they had made it ×2 the price. And I said, no, I was here last month and I bought this drug. You cannot increase it from 6,000 to 12,000. It's not possible. I said, no, I know they pay. After all, I'm your customer here. I said, where is he, madam? He said, okay, the guy at the pharmacy, look at it, and he check inside the system. Then went inside and told the madam that there's a customer, and they took it back to the price. What are we talking about? If we are not, in Nigeria, we like to do big man. Everybody wants to show they have cash flow. But you see, the point is that when you don't know what you're doing, people will take your cash flow from you. Those who have the business will take the cash flow from you. You want to buy a property now, if you don't price it properly, if you price it properly and hold on to your cash, you see the property coming down. But if you say you have the money, like they used to have the money, hopefully now we're seeing all the money, but if you say you have money, you rush in there and buy a property that you shouldn't buy for more than 20 million, at 200 million, they take the money from you, and then when you are broke, everybody will laugh at you. So anyway, but my key issue, Mr. Benga, is my key issue is that timing. Let the government not overestimate its popularity. Is there any
time you will remove subsidy and you will have an uproar?
That subsidy, okay, now two things we can do, sir. Two things we can do. Number one, that petrol subsidy looks like a dead duck to me already. It needs to go like, yesterday. So I mean, that's a fait accompli. The electricity tariff we may not be able to avoid.
Yeah, I've not got to
However, then you now begin to consider what can government do on the other side. Look, the role of government all over the world is to put in here and remove here. You put in and remove. That is the role of government. You put money in, you take it out as taxes, as levies, as charges, as all sorts of things. If the government should let us see, apart from these 5,000 things which I don't believe in, let me tell you, sir. There's a movie I like to watch from time to time. It's called Do the Right Thing. And in Do the Right Thing, there's this guy called the mayor. He's a drunk on the streets of Brooklyn. He walks into Sal's Pizza, run by an Italian. And Sal's knows that this guy is a drunk. He needs to drink. He brings out $1 and puts it on the table and looks away. Mayor grabs the $1 and Mayor says, you're going to have the cleanest sidewalk in Brooklyn. Don't give somebody something for nothing when you can give them something for something. So why would we be talking about giving people 5,000 naira for nothing when you can employ and mobilize the youth of this country? I personally I keep advising. Give us a MAMSA raised to power 2, to power 5. Mobilize and speak to the people of this. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I was in Lagos. Do you see this rail track in Mile 2 going to Badagry? It has become a refuse dump. You see people cross from the other side and empty, and then they set fire to it. If they don't put that rail there, that Fashola is doing, in the next week, they will find it difficult to maintain that rail because it doesn't
disappear. If it's something they can bet somewhere, I'm sure it would have.
These are places you can engage the people and use the people to organize.
All right, Tokwe, you have raised so many other issues. And I think you've raised the issue of power, which I've not even got into.
I think what I have to like the movie Mr. Tokwe. Do the Right Thing, directed by Spike Lee.
You know that.
But you can see that even after the Italian star did all he did, still the neighborhood descended into chaos. There was a riot. A lot of things were destroyed. So even with his corporate social responsibility, SAR still failed to pacify the community. So the whole thing descended into chaos. So now, commenting on what he said,
and your view as well.
And as the voice of the as the organized private sector. In Abuja here, he has painted a lot of bleak outlook. Yes. The first time you said 4 dark horses. Now you said 4 dark horses. Now you said unleashing the 4 dragons.
I was going to ask you whether it's in addition to the 4 dark horses.
Yeah, it's
or the dragons. The horses are
the 4 horses. No, the 4 horses and the 4 dragons. But I'm made to believe that the 4 dragons are maybe the electricity tariff, the valuation of the naira, subsidy, and all that. But there's also a book I like to read called Eat That Frog First. Do some unpalatable things. Nigerians have hope that this government is bringing hope to the masses. And any rule, just like a head of family, you may take some undesirable or unpalatable decisions. But if those decisions in the long run, and I know that the government is sincere about carrying out those policies, people will persevere. Now, coming to fuel subsidy, I personally, and as the voice of the private sector here, we continue saying, I still don't believe